Do you find survival mode in Scrap Mechanic to be too easy when compared to similar games? Would you like more of a challenge? Would you like to feel a sense of progression and that you are always working towards something? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, you are not alone. Last week I polled my YouTube community and 63% responded saying survival mode is way too easy and a hardcore mode would be great. On Twitch I asked the same question during a few of my live streams and the consensus was survival is too easy. Prior to any of this, a friend, Divine, had already started working on a hardcore mod. I piggybacked on his work, and with the help of Kaiba, Blue Flame, and a few regulars on Twitch, we created a true hardcore mod for Scrap Mechanic Survival. In this video, I'm going to quickly cover the highlights of the mod, and at the end I'll show you how to install it if you're unsure how to do so, but are interested in trying it out. Let's get started. Here's the Scrap Mechanic Hardcore Survival mod documentation. There will be a link for this down in the description below. It'll also be posted on Steam, in the Scrap Mechanic Discord, and on the Scrap Mechanic Reddit. We're going to try to put it everywhere just to make sure as many eyes can see it as possible. So wherever you're watching this video or however you come across it, you should be able to have no problem finding this document as well as how to download it. So the first thing in the document real quick is the GitHub. That's where you can get the files. We'll post them everywhere else if possible. I'm not sure if you have to actually post them on Steam or if you can post to GitHub. I'll have to take a look at that. So they might be posted directly on Steam, but it's 52 files, so it's probably easier to get them from the GitHub. And what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to skim through this. I'm not going to cover everything. I'm going to hit the major points, and you can read through it whenever you have a chance if you're interested in all the details. But what I want to do is go through each part and explain why we made these changes. So first up is farming and raids. Now, in the survival trailer, the people in the game built a huge base. They had a raid. The bots came in. They looked awesome. That is the thing that sold me on this game from the beginning. I had not played Scrap Mechanic prior to Survival except for about a week before, and that was when I saw the Survival trailer. Never played creative. I think I spent a grand total of maybe 10 hours in creative since I've been playing the game for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, something like that, maybe longer. So almost all of my time is in Survival. That's what I wanted to play it for. I wanted to build a farm. I wanted to build a base. I wanted to defend it. But what we found was I have over 600 hours in the game, and other people I play with have hundreds of hours as well. The raids and the farming are just kind of trivial. And the reason for that is you can get so much food from just looting the world that you really don't have to farm that much. Farming is only really necessary if you're trying to do warehouses maybe and you want to make some sandwiches, or if you're just trying to grow crops in order to trade for the spud gun, the spud shotgun, and the spudling gun. Other than that, you can probably get away with it if you're being very careful and judicious with your food supply. You can get away with not really planting very often and just living off of the stuff you find. So what we wanted to do was make the focus of this mod be on farming and raids, and the way we did that was we changed the grow time on crops, and what we did was we increased the time for the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 from 0.875 days to 1.75 days. So now all crops will take 1.75 days, meaning if you plant any crop, you will have to defend for at least 2 raids in order to successfully harvest the crops. We also reduced the seed drop rate. This is a big thing. You get way too many seeds in the vanilla game. You end up having so many seeds you can't even use them all. I know I've done this. Everybody's done this. You just throw the seeds away and hope they despawn. We reduced the rate from 2 to 1.25. We did that mainly not because of the inventory issue, because we'll get to that later, but mainly because we want you to have to farm on a regular basis in order to get enough seeds to plant more crops in order to be able to trade for stuff. So that should help with that. Raid levels. The minimum value to trigger a raid in vanilla is 10, which means you have to plant at least 10 tier 1, or 5 tier 2, 6 tier 1.5, or whatever the number is. Tier 3, you have to plant like 4 in order to get a raid. We reduced that to 1. That means from the very start, when you spawn into the game on a new world, you're going to have that little tomato plant over there at the start area. It's going to have a raid clock on it, meaning you can either destroy it or you can defend against the raid. So if you plant any crops, no matter which one or how many of them, you're going to get a raid of some sort. We reduced the spawn raid radius slightly in order to make sure the bots don't get stuck on stuff. Because what we were finding is, and I've seen this every world I've ever played on, no matter where I put my farm, bots will get stuck on water, they'll get stuck on trees. It'll probably still happen depending on where you build, but hopefully the closer they spawn, it'll make it so that they're getting there quicker, and also they're less likely to get stuck on stuff. And then we added 2 levels to the raid chart. So in vanilla, there's only 10. There's now 12. Everything slid down. I'm not going to go through all this. The highlight of it is basically you're going to get a raid on 1 through 9 crops now. In the vanilla, you're only going to get 10 through 19 and up. So you're no longer safe if you plant any crops. You're going to get a raid. And what we did was night 1 is going to be kind of balanced. It's got mostly tote bots. Night 2 gets a lot more tote bots, as you can see, and then night 3 switches to where you're going to get more hay bots than tote bots. So basically, you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to take a break between nights 2 and 3, or if you want to keep going and try to get stuff as fast as possible. The more you plant, the harder it's going to get. As you can see, it escalates pretty quickly down here. These raids are much harder than in vanilla at the highest levels, and I made it scale so that it felt like it scaled pretty evenly between the nights 1, 2, and 3 throughout it. So there's no like major increases, just slightly increases. So the more crops you plant and the longer you plant them, the harder it's going to get. Now, we also changed a lot of the bot stats and the loot drops. The reason we did that was the tote bots in the game feel like they're basically useless. I mean, a tote bot, it's almost impossible to die to a tote bot. You could go AFK and go to sandwich and come back, and the tote bot may or may not have hit you enough time to kill you. So the decision I made was to reduce the damage the tote bots do by 5, but increase the range they can hit you from and increase the cooldown between their attacks by half. So basically they're attacking twice as fast. They're doing less damage, but they're attacking twice as fast. So they're actually going to be doing, instead of doing 15 damage like every 1 second or so, they're going to be doing 20 damage every 1 second, and they can also hit you from further away. Also found that a lot of times you can just cheese stuff by just building out of high durability blocks or high durability objects, and just you don't really have to defend, especially early on. So what I wanted to do was make sure that the bots, that you can't just sit there and AFK during a raid, and you actually have to be actively engaged in it. So I increased the chances of all the bots basically can have a higher chance of destroying blocks of higher durability. And then also you're going to notice here, so we got loot drops. So the tote bots have a 75% chance of dropping an item, not including the head, which is separate. So they have a 75% chance of dropping a circuit board, and then 25% they drop nothing. They also drop their head, which we're calling the CPU. We'll get to that a little bit later. They've always dropped their heads, but the other bots haven't. Similar stuff with the Haybot. In the Haybot's case, I kind of feel like the Haybots were a little overpowered, especially with their main attack, which has a really short cooldown, and they can basically just whack you 4 times within a second or so. It's just crazy how fast they can hit you. They have a long range. So we'll reduce the damage of the Haybots slightly, didn't touch the range or the cooldown, and did that, I kind of feel like, to make it more balanced. So if you go into a building and 6 Haybots start chasing, you're not going to just insta-die, which is just feels like it's really not a fair mechanic, because this, unlike other games, this game does not have any kind of armor right now. So you basically just have your 100 HP, and if you have five Haybots hitting you for 30, a quarter of a second, you can instantly die, which just doesn't feel fair at all. Did the same thing with the Haybots. They have a better chance of destroying the blocks. Not going to go through these. The loot drops, Haybot now has a 100% chance of dropping something, not including its head, which is separate. They can drop a component kit half the time. They can drop 3 to 7 scrap metal 25% of the time. This is in addition to the scrap spine. They will always drop their scrap spine. This is just extra scrap metal. They can drop glue or bearings 15 and 10% respectively. And then 12.5% of the time, their head will drop. Just like the Topbot head drops on the ground, their head will drop. Like I said, we're calling it CPU. It's used in some crafting recipes. We'll get to that later. Tape bots. Tape bots are so overpowered, I don't understand how the devs even could possibly think that they were fair. You can walk into a warehouse, there's 2 or 3 of them, you walk around a corner, don't see them, you're dead. Insta-dead. There's no way you can defend against it. It's not really fair. So to make it fair, because they have such a huge range, we reduce the damage significantly and increase the cooldown between shots. So you're no longer just going to sit there and get spammed by the aimbot, tape bots, and instantly dying. And then loot drops, they have a 100% chance to drop an item, not including their head. 66.7% of dropping 1 to 3 component kits, 20% of battery, and then 13.33% they're going to drop 3 to 7 potato ammo, and then 12.5%, same as the Haybot, they'll drop their head. Farm bots went the other way. Farm bots, in my opinion, should be stronger than they are. Currently, their kick, which if you're really close to them, they'll kick you, it does only 10 damage. That got increased to 25. Most of their damages were most of their melee attacks were 35. They got increased to 55. The breach was 60, reduced that to 55, just so they were all in line. So basically, if they kick you, they're going to do 25. Anything else, if they hit you twice, you're dead. And I think that's kind of fair, because we'll get to it later on. It definitely feels fair, because you can basically just kill farm bots without really much trouble, especially if you have a spud gun. You just start shooting them from a distance, and before they even get to you, they're dead. So this will make it that if you let one to get too close to you, they can really easily kill you. And then, like the other bots, the farm bots have a higher chance of breaking blocks, as you can see, as they should, in my opinion. Their loot, they have a 100% chance of dropping an item, not including their head. They will always drop a component kit. It is between 5 and 15, and they will always drop one warehouse key, and they will have a 20% chance of dropping their head, which we're using in crafting. We'll get to that later. Next up is the loot pool. We're not going to go through all this because it's a lot of charts, but the gist of it is the main loot pool in the game, both in the starter area and the general rest of the game, was inundated with seeds, and there's tons of soil. So outside of the starting area having a small chance of having red beet seeds because they don't spawn at the starter farm, only carrots and tomatoes do. So red beets are in the loot crates, the green loot crates, and the ruin chests in the starter area only in a small amount. You can also find them at the roadside markets and possibly spawning at the trader's hideout. But other than that, all seeds are removed from all loot pools because they just dilute their loot pool. You get way too many seeds. There's just so many ways to get seeds that it's unnecessary. Soil is also removed. You're either going to have to find soil at the farms around the map or trade for it. So you can't just instantly be able to just get all this soil and up. Like I know from looting in the games that I was playing, I was throwing soil away because you just get so much soil you can't use it all. We also significantly reduced the food drops in the loot pool in general. The reason for that was, again, because at the beginning, like we were saying, we want the focus to be on farming. You should have to farm in order to have enough food to stay alive. You should not be able to just loot and get so much food that you never have to farm. So there's still a chance of getting food, especially in the starter area. There's guaranteed food in the starter area just to make sure you don't starve before you have to actually do your first planting. Most likely you're not going to plant instantly, so you might not get food for the 3 to 4 in-game days. We don't want you to starve, so there is food in the starter area loot crates. It is also in the regular loot crates, but at a much lower rate. And we added some building blocks and some other stuff. So just to go through here, you're going to see there's no seeds except red beets. Some blocks were added to it, and then some of this other stuff was in here. Starter area loot crates will drop 1 to 3 items with an average of 1.5. The vanilla is 1 to 3 items with an average of 2, so you're going to get slightly less. And then they also have, in addition to these, they also have a 20% chance of dropping either a circuit board or component kit, 60% chance of neither. So they'll always drop at least 1 item, sometimes 3, but average 1.5. The ruin chests in the starter area only are guaranteed to have food in them. There is a 25% chance of a red beet, or it was a 25% chance of dropping red beet, 50% chance of dropping, no, sorry, carrots and tomatoes are 25% chance, red beets are 50% chance, and it'll be between 1 and 3 of them. So there's 4 large ruin chests in the starter area. There's 2 in the building with the master battery, and there's 2 in the building that is down in the parking lot. So that means you're guaranteed to get between 4 and 12 pieces of food just from those. That should be enough even if you get really unlucky and don't get any food anywhere else. There's actually 2 sun shakes inside the spaceship that you can get also. So I did a bunch of runs. I just sat there and kept going over and over again doing the runs to make sure the food felt balanced. The food feels balanced as it is now. I'm not going to go through all these. You can look at these yourself. Basically went through the loot pool, took out seeds, took out other junk that just didn't feel like, it felt like it was clogging it up, and tried to put in things that are actually useful. And then the common loot crates, they're the same as the ones in the starter area. They have a 1 to 3 chance with a 1.5 drop items dropped on average. It's normally 1 to 3 with a 2 average, so it's slightly less. So again, you're gonna have to rely on farming to get your stuff. You're gonna have to rely on killing bots to get component kits and other resources, and farming resources like wax and glue and stuff like that. You're not gonna just be able to go around and loot a bunch of buildings and get so much stuff you can never use it all. Make our way down here. Epic loot crates, which are the gold ones, they will always drop 3 items. We didn't change anything to that. I did change some of the stuff in the loot pool here, so you can read through this as you see fit. The ruin chests have they have a 50% chance of dropping at least 1 piece of food. So it's the same as the starter area, except there's a 50% chance instead of a 100% chance. So carrots and tomatoes are 12.5%, red beets 25, and then there's a 50% chance of being none. It's also 1 to 2 for each instead of 1 to 3. So those ruin chests, if you get lucky and have someone around, you'll always get a couple pieces of food. Well, you have a good chance of getting a couple pieces of food, but it's not a guarantee. Now, here's a major change. This might cause some consternation with some people. Originally, when Survival came out, you could take a bed into a warehouse and just cheese the heck out of it. Now the strategy is usually just pull your car up with a bed on it, leave it in the parking lot. If you die, you just respawn right at the door and come back in. That's not going to be the case right now unless you actually earn yourself a bed. So the bed is no longer craftable in the craft bot. It is only found, one of them is found in each warehouse rewards chest. That's the little chest, small chest that has the broccoli and pineapple seeds in it. It will have 1 respawn bed. So if you want a respawn bed, you have to complete at least one warehouse. There's the respawn beds back at the spaceship and at the 2 mechanic stations, and I guess there's probably some at the, I don't remember if there's some at the second spaceship, but where you spawn at the beginning of the game, and then at the 2 mechanic stations, one at the start, and then one that's on the other side of the map. There's beds there, so you can set your respawn points, but if you want to take beds with you in a car, you want to have other beds, you need to complete the warehouses to get them out of the warehouse rewards chest. Also, we increased the number of pineapple and broccoli seeds from 5 to 10, just because we've reduced the seed drops everywhere else, and it would just be incredibly silly, grindy to have to go plant 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and only getting 1 extra seed. So we wanted to make it, we didn't want to create that much artificial grind, so that's a slight increase. And then there's also a guarantee of getting 2 to 4 component kits in each of the chests, the loot crates that are inside the warehouse. Another change, what we found was, even though we reduced the food, it was very easy to get milk, and you tend to get more thirsty than you do hungry. So you could basically just go find one cow, give her a bunch of corn, and you have so much milk you can't use it all. So we messed around with this, ended up coming, I think this is the sweet spot. Instead of giving a cow 3 corn, you have to give them 10 to get 1 milk. That way you can't rely just on milk to stay alive either. Next up, we have some stack changes. So I know there's mods out for this. We just kind of messed with the ones we thought most needed it without having to have any other mods, and it's just, as you can go see here, it's most of the ones that are 10 stacked to 20. Sunshakes and milk 5 to 24. Seeds go from 20 to 200. They should never be an issue anymore. And then the bot heads also stack. The tote bots used to be, they would just stack in one, they would just be 1 at a time. And then the others, of course, were not in the game. Now that they're all in there, they can all stack to 10. Next up, we have storage slots. So what we want to kind of do is, you're not going to be able to get large chests really quickly. You'll see that once we get down a little bit further. So the wooden crates that you find at the starter area farm, and that you also find at the roadside markets, they're those little wooden crates. They look like they're just decorative. We were able to make them so that you can use them for storage. So they have 5 slots. So you should find enough of those to be able to store most of your stuff early game. Plus you get the locker and the spaceship. So you shouldn't have to be throwing stuff all over the floor, having your backpack flooded. So you can put 5 things in those. And then the chests and the large chests have had their number of slots increase from 20 to 40 and 30 to 60. And they've also have had a proportional change in crafting costs in the recipe. So it's not like we just made them the same as they were before and you could just get more slots. They do cost more to make. But the reason for this is, everything I've heard and everything I've seen, the less chests you have, the better in terms of performance. So we want to kind of try to keep that as small, like just so you can build like a compact base and not have 100 chests, because on the world that we started in January, I don't remember the last time I counted, but we probably have around 50 chests or something in the mechanic station, just stacked on top of each other all over the place. It's just insane because they only have 30 slots. Also, the wooden crates are not craftable. You can only find them, so they're just kind of there until you get a chest, just so you don't have to have a bunch of stuff in your backpack or thrown it on the floor. Next up is crafting the workbench. This is the mini craft bot. This is the one you find in the spaceship and also find in the mechanic stations. And without going into each one of these, you can read them for yourself. We basically rebalance the cost of making everything. Also, there's no button or switch in these because you really don't need those at the workbench. They're in the regular craft bot, so you can go through here and see the different changes. I guess one thing to highlight is, in order to make a seat, a driver seat, it actually costs a scrap seat. So you have to make the scrap seat and then craft that into the scrap driver seat. Next up is a dispenser. The dispenser is the mechanic station. That's the thing that drops it from the ceiling, and when you walk up to the little control board and you pick what you want, it drops from the ceiling. That's the dispenser. So this is where the CPUs come into play. One thing we noticed was, it's really easy to get a craft bot, and it's really easy to upgrade it in vanilla. It just does not take that long to get the resources to make it, and if you have 1 or 2 or 3 people running around looting, you're just going to get enough component kits to max the next thing out. So within like a couple of hours, you just instantly have a level 5 craft bot, and it just makes the game so much easier. So we wanted to make it where you actually you're incentivized to go around and to also run raids and to kill the hay bots. So instead of it costing scrap metal circuit boards and component kits, it now costs scrap metal, component kits, and haybot CPUs. So you need 10 haybot CPUs, which means you need to kill, I think it's about 80 haybots on average to get 8 of them. Maybe you'll get lucky and get them quicker. We tested it at a 10% drop rate instead of a 12.5, and it took us about 7 to 9 in-game days. So this should make it a little bit quicker. The cookbot requires farmbot CPUs. The reason for that is the cookbot makes sandwiches. The sandwiches are really OP, and I feel like you should have to kill farm bots to earn those, to be able to fill all of your hunger, thirst, and HP up in one bite. Refine bot costs tape bot CPUs. The refine bot is a luxury. It makes refining much quicker. So if you want to do that, you're going to have to go find yourself a warehouse and kill a bunch of tape bots and get their heads so you can take them back and make the refine bot. The dress bot, we used Haybot CPUs, honestly, because this is just cosmetic. It doesn't really affect anything, so you'll probably end up getting enough Haybot CPUs to make this. And then the resource collector is using the Topot heads. You should get plenty of those. They drop pretty frequently, like I said, 10%, plus they're all over the map. And then if you're running the low-level raids, you're going to get a bunch of Topots, so this shouldn't have any problem making this. Next up is the craft bot itself. So the big things here are we have removed the electric engine, the respawn bed, which we already talked about, the gas container, battery container, water container, chemical container, water cannon, saw blade, drill, and soil. All those can be found at the trader's hideout, except the respawn bed, which, as I mentioned before, can only be found in the warehouse rewards chest. The reason we did this was specifically with the water container and the water cannon was because you can set up an automated farm almost within like an hour or two of starting a new game. And we wanted it to be where you had to actually grow some crops, trade them in. So you're going to grow some crops, get yourself a craft bot, make yourself a vacuum pump and a chest, and take it down and turn that stuff in order to make your farm automated. Saw blades and drills have always been at the trader, but we wanted to make it so that you can't just make those and just start cutting down trees and drilling rocks and getting tons of metal and tons of high tier wood and tons of concrete and stuff early on. So you're going to actually have to work for that. It's going to say here, everything below is the stuff that's changed. If you don't see something listed, that means it didn't change. I think I might have mentioned this earlier. The craft bot in vanilla costs 40 component kits to upgrade. It now costs 100. We are considering using the CPUs from the Haybots, or from some of probably the Haybots, to upgrade this thing, but we didn't figure out how to do that yet. That might be in a future version, because component kits, I've rebalanced them a couple times. They should feel like they're okay now. Last time we did a run of this, we ended up getting the craft bot, and then I was able to instantly upgrade it. So I said, okay, that we're getting too many component kits. So I did reduce the component kit drops in the loot pool and also from the Haybots and stuff like that. So anyway, also it costs more component kits to upgrade the gas engine. Tools, not much to say there. The paint tool costs Topot CPUs, and the weld tool costs Haybot CPUs. The paint tool's strictly cosmetic, other than like turning your lights white. And then the weld tool, obviously that's cool for moving stuff around if you need to, so it's kind of a luxury, which was why we're putting that on here. It's not a necessity. Blocks, the main thing with blocks is they cost more, so instead of it costing 1.5 to 1, so 15 to 10, we made it 2 to 1, and then also added some resources in here. So for example, cardboard, you have to have cotton. The wood blocks, in addition to the metal 2 and the metal 3, you have to have glue. And then we added rusted metal. These are the metal blocks that you can find at the warehouses and the little pavilion things that have the yellow pipes around them. So you can craft that using scrap metal and water. The reason that has this ratio is because it actually lowers the durability. Scrap metal has 3 durability, they only have 2, so we made it so you get double the amount. Mess with the metal blocks. Metal one costs a little bit more, so there's embers. There were no embers or chemicals or water in that, so we added those. Concrete, there's chemicals and waters, and then instead of using metal, we use the net block, the punch steel, and the solid net. Those are the netting 1, 2, and 3, basically. Interactive, I think the main things here, we added some resources here. So you're going to see beeswax is added here. The suspensions. So the off-road suspension is the stronger one. So in order to make an off-road suspension, you have to make a sport suspension and then get these other things. Pistons. All these things have been slightly increased in cost. Seats, you're going to notice. So in order to make a seat, in order to make a driver seat, you're first going to have to make a scrap seat, which then turns into a scrap driver seat. The scrap driver seat then turns into a seat, which then can be turned into a driver seat. So instead of being able to just go find yourself some cotton, metal, and circuit board and instantly have a driver seat, you got to actually work for it. You have to go through all the levels. So that's kind of like the progression thing. Same thing goes with the saddle. Anything else in here? These things have all changed a little bit. Beacons are much more expensive now. They cost twice as many radios. They're metal 3 instead of metal 2. Double the circuit boards. Then we added 25 beeswax. Beacons, once again, they're not a necessity, but they make the game a lot easier, so we wanted to make it a lot more expensive to craft them. Chests, you're going to notice, cost more to craft. and they have more slots, so it's more component. They actually cost component kits. They cost 2 bearings and more glue, so they're more expensive, but they have more slots. And the large chest, in order to make that, you actually have to have a you have to have the smaller chest with metal 2 instead of metal 1, more component kits, and the same number of glue. Small explosive, you need that to make a large explosive. So again, the kind of the progression thing. Crap, this is like a level 1, this is a level 2, so you need the level 1 to make the level 2. Same thing with wheels here. Actually, I guess we should cover glue. So glue is much easier to get now because they increased the amount of glue clams you get from 1 to, I think it's like 2 to 4 or something that are 1 to 3, something like that. You get more glue clams for each clam. So we've added water and beeswax to that. Water should not be hard to get. Beeswax you can just go around collect. Wheels are the same thing. You need a scrap wheel first. The scrap wheel turns into the small wheel. The small wheel turns into the big wheel. And we added bearings and other stuff in here, kind of just try to make it feel like it's more balanced. There's various fertilizer. We'll talk about that in a second. This is going to be another one. I think this is going to be up there with beds probably for the one change that maybe people might be against, might think it's too much. The first update where they made crude oil go from having 1 per geyser to like 2 to 5, in my opinion, was like kind of overboard. And then they followed that up by adding oil ponds, which just makes getting oil and then turning it into gas instantly so easy. You can get thousands per hour just AFK, making gas like a resource that it's almost like they're making it creative where gas isn't really a thing. You can just have as much gas as you want. So in order to compensate for that, you need more crude oil, you have to have chemicals, and you have to have corn. So there's not going to be any way to fully automate this thing. You can collect the oil, you can collect the chemicals, you're going to have to go around and find yourself corn to make the oil, to make the gas. And I felt that was kind of fair because gas has ethanol in it. Ethanol is made from corn, so it also has chemicals in it in the process. So if you want to play creative, go play creative. If you want to play like a hardcore survival, then you're gonna have to go out there and farm yourself some stuff. One of the few things we made more favorable to players was it only costs 1 flour to make 5 paint. Paint, other than the explosives, which we did increase by a 5x amount in the crafting cost, so we didn't just make it easier to craft them. But painting stuff is more of it's a cosmetic thing, so we just wanted to make it easier for that. And then we added the ability to make sun shakes. So there were no sun shakes. You couldn't craft sun shakes before. Now it costs 5 milk, 5 bananas. So you can make those. Let's see, anything else here? The fertilizer. So fertilizer in vanilla costs 10 carrot, 10 red beet, and 10 tomato. We've now made it cost 10 carrot, red beet, tomato, or actually potato should be in there. It's 8 banana, blueberry, orange, or cotton, and then 3 broccoli or pineapple seeds. The reason we did that, of course, I've mentioned many times up to this point, is there's far fewer seeds in the game, so you're gonna get less seeds, so you're gonna need fertilizer. Fertilizer is gonna be your big friend if you want to get your crafting time down. The trader's hideout. Main changes here: we doubled the amount of seeds again because of the seed reduction without changing the total cost here. Increase the cost of getting all the guns. So the spud gun was 2 and 2 for orange and blueberry. It's now 5 and 5. Spud shotgun was 4 broccoli. It's now 10. Spudding gun was 5 pineapple. It's now 10. You'll see the water cannon is here. Saw blade and drill cost more. It's now 1 of each fruit for the saw blade, 1 of each vegetable for the drill. You can craft the Sunshade Cutters. You may or may not have seen my videos on using the Sunshade Cutters, which are the pink udders that are on top of the Sunshade machines that I've been using for my drop traps. They just come down, they spin, and they smash the bots. They work really well. There's only a limited number of those on the map, so we're making them where you can trade for them, and they cost pineapple and broccoli because they're durability 6, and they tend to work really well. Electric engine, gas container, all these containers are gas, battery, and water and chemical you can currently craft. The fertilizer and the seed container were not in the game, but they were in the game files, so Divine added them in here, so you can trade for all of those. And then the potato ammo container costs slightly more to make. Then we also, Divine has a lot of time playing Minecraft, and he was trying to add stuff in there that would be like endgame goals to grind for. So he put in creative gas engine, creative electric engine, creative thruster, and creative mountable spud gun. They cost an exorbitant amount to get because they are going to be super OP. So the creative gas engine uses no gas. Creative electric engine uses no batteries. Creative thruster uses no gas. And the creative mountable spud gun does not use ammo. It just shoots without having ammo attached to it. So that's why they cost 150 pineapple and 150 broccoli plus 10 caged farmers. We also added the Epic Garment Box, which is the gold garment boxes for a pretty high cost, 5 broccoli and 5 pineapple, 5 cage farmers. And then embers, scrap wood, and stone and scrap stone are in here. Just because those are not renewable resources, you can always get more scrap metal because there's always hay bots spawning. You cannot get more once you cut down all the trees in the burn forest or the regular trees. You can't get embers or scrap wood anymore. It's probably not going to get to that point, but just in case. And then the same thing with scrap stones. Once you destroy all the stones, you're not going to be able to get any more scrap stone. Of course, all 3 of these are in the loot pool, but they're at low rates, so you're not going to get enough from generally looting to get enough of them to use. And then the seeds that you find outside the trader's hideout that are to the left of him, they typically have a 5-day in-game spawn. They respawn every 5 days. We've changed it to 100 days, so you can't just go back there and get them on a regular basis. And then real quick, some miscellaneous changes. Refining by hand in the past gave 10 every time. Now it gives 8 to 12. A random amount between 8 and 12. And then using the refine block gives 15 instead of 10. So you're incentivized to get the refine block because you're going to get more out of each piece of scrap wood, scrap metal, or scrap stone. We changed the HP Hunger and Thirst for the Sunshake from 10-25-35 to 25-50-50. Kaiba was kind enough to go through the ragdoll animations for the players, cows, farm bots, hay bots, tape bots, and tote bots, and made it so they should be have a less dramatic impact on performance of the game, as well as reducing the chance of the bot heads flying really far away when they drop. I know the devs did something about that, but they still tend to fly. They can still fly far away, but it should happen less frequently. Another big change, the roadside markets in the starter area typically have scrap wood. If you find a roadside market, you can probably get upwards of 1,000, maybe 2,000 scrap wood, which just makes farming trees you don't even have to farm trees almost ever once you do that, because in vanilla, by the time you're actually needing to cut trees down, you probably have a saw and you're cutting them down, never really having to break them or refine them. So they've been replaced by insulation blocks, which have the same durability as scrap wood, but they're not craftable. I think their durability too. The seed drop rates have been slightly reduced, so instead of getting up to 5, you can only get up to 4 at the roadside market starting area and the trader's hideout. This might be another change that might aggravate some clever players. The air conditioner has a durability of 6 in the vanilla. You can find air conditioners at the roadside market. You can also craft them for 10 metal 1 and a couple circuit boards, so they're ultra cheap to make a durability 6 block that covers a huge chunk. So I reduced the durability of those from 6 to 3 to make them more balanced, so you can't just spam them all over the place and just protect your farm without any worries. Another big change, sledgehammer damage increased from 5 to 7.5. So now it takes 2 hits to kill tote bots and 4 hits to kill hay bots. So it's slightly more damage there. And we kind of feel, after testing this extensively, it felt more balanced that way, in addition to taking that into account in correlation with the changes to the amount of damage that each of the bots do and how fast they attack. Also, Kaiba was able to add the block melee attacks with the sledgehammer. So for some reason, the devs couldn't get that to work, but he was able to get it back in. He somehow managed to do it in one day. In like 8 to 10 hours, got it back in there. So you can block with your hammer. It uses stamina, but it also reduces melee damage taken by 75%. He was also able to make it so that when you pick up blocks with it or pick up items, it does not drain your stamina significantly. So the reason for this is, before you get the Spud Gun, it is very easy to get overwhelmed by hay bots and just like you could insta-die. Same thing, I tested this against farm bots. It blocks the farm bot damage by 75%. So when that farm bot's trying to hit you for 55, you're only going to take, like 10 to 15 or something like that. And what that does is, if you don't have a gun, it gives you a chance to get away without being killed, because like I said, you have no armor in this game. So it really doesn't feel fair if you accidentally have a farm bot stumble upon you in a forest somewhere, or one behind a building, you don't see it, you don't have a gun, and you're just insta-dead. So he made that change. Also, you can still get glow from feeding the glowls cardboard, but if you decide you want to whack them with your sledgehammer a couple times, they will actually drop 1 glow. And then things that we haven't put in but might put in the future, variations to the sun shakes. So basically we were thinking about like broccoli plus a sun shake would give you a stamina or a strength boost. So it'd be like the Popeye spinach thing, the green thing. Pineapple will be like a fruit shake. So if pineapple plus sun shake will give you a stamina boost, and then something else for a speed boost. Just kind of thinking of ways of making it where maybe you could even get like more HP or something like that. Thinking about making water drinkable, but making it expensive, like cost embers, and it would not fill up a lot of thirst. So you basically have to, because they don't say in the game whether the water's clean or not. I mean, it looks nice and clean, but it could have salt in it, could have something else in it, who knows. We want to maybe make the cookbot connectable to the large chests and add recipes to it so you can auto craft stuff there. Thinking about maybe taking one of the crops and making them cost less time to grow so that you can live off of that and not have to worry about taking 2 days just in case you're going to die. By the time you're seeing this, this might actually be available. If it is, I'll put it down in the comments. Adding an ultra hardcore mode where you have a single life. So the way this will work will be if you're playing solo and you die, when you respawn, you're going to respawn with 0 HP, 0 hunger, and 0 thirst, which means you're in a continuous death loop so you can't get out and you're done. If you're in a multiplayer, you will still, a friend can give you a revival baguette and bring you back to life. So that's not in the game. That's not in version 1. It might be in version like 1.1. And I kind of wanted to test it out myself a little more and have other people give feedback before they logged in, played for 5 hours, and then had some kind of silly death because of something, and then they couldn't play it anymore and be frustrated. So we're going to add that as an option. I think Kaiba said he was going to add it as a chat command, so you will basically just type in like slash whatever hardcore whatever 1 life or something like that, and it would just toggle it on, and it will only be on that world, and you can also toggle it off. So we'll talk about that later on down the line. And then we wanted to maybe scale raids and maybe scale the loot based on the number of players. Right now we tested it. I tested it solo. I tested it with 1 person, 2 people, and 3 people. So we had from 1 to 4 people in there. It felt balanced for 1 to 2 people. It feels okay for 3 people, and then at 4 people, it started to feel like it was unbalanced. So I think what we want to do is scale the raids up based on the number of players. Maybe scale the time it takes to grow the food, or change the loot pool or something based on the number of people. We just got to mess with that. So if you're playing by yourself or you're playing with 1 or 2 friends, it should feel pretty balanced in my opinion. And then we're also working on adding variations of each type of bot. So with different buffs, so maybe like a faster movement speed, a stronger attack, higher HP. And then they might have their own unique loot drops. We haven't thought about that yet. So that kind of covered all. I know this was a long video. If you made it this far, thank you. And I think the only thing I have left to do is, if you're not familiar with how to install a survival mod, I will hop over and show you how to download it from the GitHub. I'll show you the GitHub, how to download it from the GitHub, and then how to install it, as well as how to take it off if you want to go back to vanilla. So let's head on over there real quick. All right, here's the GitHub page. This is where Divine started putting the files. This is what we've been updating. So the latest version will be here. I guess we're also going to post it at other places, maybe Steam and Discord and the Scrap Mechanic Reddit, but this is going to be the main place where we keep it and update it, and then it'll be distributed everywhere else as needed. So basically, if you're not, you go to the GitHub. This link's at the top of the document I just went over. You just basically go in here. I'll real quick show you what's in here. So there's 2 main folders underneath Scrap Mechanic. Data is stuff that's going into the core of the game, and survival is the survival folder. These each have folders in here. We don't need to get into all of them. This is basically all the files that have been manipulated. So you go back to the main directory, click the little green button, download the zip. Zip is going to take you to show in folder. So this is going to show you the folder. Basically, all you want to do is extract this here. This gives you the file. And then we're going to go into here. You're going to drill down until you get to Scrap Mechanic. So you want to get down to the point where you're saying data survival. Then you're going to go over to Steam. If you're not familiar with how to actually see the local files, you just basically right click, hit manage, and hit browse local files. And then bam, here we're in the directory. This is the Scrap Mechanic directory we're looking for. And then here's the Scrap Mechanic folder we were in. This is the extraction. And right now I don't have it installed, but all you have to do is grab these 2 and then drag them over here. It's going to say the destination has however many files it is. Right now it's 52 files. It could be different depending on when you're watching this. You're just going to hit yes. All this is going to do is take the files in here that manipulate and replace these, leaving all the rest of them the same. And that's it. It is now installed if you want to play it. So you just log in, play. You have any survival world you play on is going to have the hardcore settings we just went through. If you want to go back and you don't know how, just go down here, right click, hit properties, go to local files, hit verify integrity of game files, and what this does is it wipes the mod off. So it's as simple as that. It's basically download the latest version, or download the version you have, drag those files over, and then if you want to go back to vanilla, all you have to do is hit verify integrity of game files, so you can go back and forth. Very simple. So I think we made it as easy as possible to be able to do this. So that should be it. If you made it this far, like I said, thank you so much. If you're interested in testing it out and you want to give feedback, you can either do it wherever you're watching this, in the comments, on YouTube, at Steam, Reddit, on my Discord. The best place is probably to do it on my Discord in the Scrap Mechanic channel. That way I'll see all of it. You can also head over to my live stream. There's a link for my Twitch down below as well. If you're interested in talking about it live, or if you want to see us playing it, because I'll surely be streaming this at some point over the next couple of weeks just to test it out along with you guys. So anyway, that's it for the survival hardcore mod. I know I talked a lot, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything and explain why we made the changes we made. Really hoping that at some point in the future that the game maybe gets an update where they add a hard mode to it, because to me, vanilla survival just feels like creative with a little bit of annoyance. Like, you're thirsty sometimes and there's some bots here and there, but once you understand how to play the game and you know what to do, it's just super easy to defend most raids, to get everything in the game. And what we want to kind of have is essentially like most survival games, to have a sense of progression and just make the game feel like a real survival game instead of a creative game with a survival mode attached to it that just is slightly harder than creative. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, like I said, leave them down below and I'll make sure I try to answer as many of them as I can. And if you have any feedback, that would be awesome. The more people that try this out, the more people to play it, that gives us the motivation to make more changes to it. It helps us refine it so it feels more balanced, because there's only a couple of us that have tested it out. The more people that test it out, the better. And we can just make it a better overall experience for people that want to have a true hardcore survival experience in Scrap Mechanic. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time.